Building a second-hand taxi. How hard can it be? Hi, welcome back to St Blazey Model World. Well, I recently won on eBay a London taxi, or to be more accurate, a 1/24th scale Revell kit of a London taxi, and to give it its proper name, it's the Austin FX4. It's a marvellous kit. I had one as a younger man, and I saw this one and I thought I'd put in a bid, and luckily I won. But that did get me thinking, because there are a number of concerns when you buy a part built or used kit from internet auction sites. And so what are the pitfalls? Well, of course, you are relying upon the seller to fairly and accurately describe what it is that you're buying or bidding on. And in this instance I was fairly lucky, and the description pretty well matched what I got, and I'm quite satisfied that the seller listed the item in good faith as accurately as they could. There are a couple of pieces missing, but they're only minor parts and they won't affect the building of the model. And of course there are no decals with this kit, but as I make my own, again, that's not an issue. And very soon we'll be making a video to show you how to make your own decals, so stay tuned for that. Now, it's fairly obvious that the most glaring part of this kit is that somebody has attempted to paint the body of the taxi in yellow, and the bonnet was treated equally. I'm not sure why you would want to paint a London taxi yellow, but there we are. That's what's happened. And of course, if I'm going to paint this kit black, which I intend to do, that's a traditional colour for a London taxi, I need to try and do something about this yellow paint. And ideally, of course, I'd like to get as much of that yellow paint off as possible. Now, because I bought this kit on a second-hand basis, I've no idea what that yellow paint is. It could be acrylic, or it could be one of the harder paints, an enamel paint, for example. So what did I try first? Well, the very first thing I tried was some soap and water, because I hoped that if it was an acrylic paint that would remove it. And as you can see, that was not successful. So the next step is to try something a bit more aggressive. So to that end, I've got my trusty nail varnish remover and my trusty cotton buds, and we'll try and take a little bit of this paint off and see what happens. So we'll just take one of our cotton buds and dip it into our nail varnish remover, and we'll see what we end up with. So all I'm going to do is rub this on the yellow paint just to see what happens. And I'm not being very aggressive, I'm just simply working on a small area to test the result. And the reason for working on a small area is, of course, that if it all goes Pete Tong, I've got some hope of recovery. Well, on the cotton bud there's virtually no yellow at all. So clearly this paint has been on here for some time and it's hardened. So on the face of it, I'm stuck with it. Well, the next best thing I can do then is to get a reasonable surface on which to apply some primer, and then go in with my black paint for the finishing colour. It doesn't really show up very well on the camera, but parts of this model have got some pitting on it, and if I turn the model round so we're looking at the boot, the rear of the taxi, just where the number plate would be there, just above there's some quite heavy pitting. So I've got to do something about that, as well as the yellow paint, before I can proceed. I have to be careful though, because the last thing I want to do is to start removing chunks of detail from this model that would detract from the item once it's finished. So I can't go in aggressive with anything like sandpaper. So I think the next best thing to do is to try a Scotch cloth. So now with a Scotch cloth I'll just gently rub the areas where the pitting exists, And I won't be able to get rid of all of that, but I can at least improve it. And there are some areas where there is the yellow paint, and of course if I rub with the Scotch cloth just a little bit harder, I might well be able to remove at least the brightness of that yellow to give the primer and my black finish paint a chance of producing something that resembles the traditional colour of the London taxi that we're looking for. So our taxi body now has had a coat of white primer, and it's time to start applying some top coat. So I'll finish this model and you'll see it again when we produce our next summary, our next update of what's been going on. Thank you for tuning in, stay safe, and we'll see you next time here at St Blazey Model World.